Hey guys, this is day 73 of the Bible reading plan, and we are in the book of Deuteronomy, chapters 8, 9, and 10. And Moses is reminding the people of a few really important things. You're going to hear a call to remember over and over again from Moses to God's people. The first thing he's going to say, chapter 8 starts out with kind of a warning. He says, "Be careful to follow every command I'm giving you today so that you may live and increase and may enter and possess the land that the Lord promised on oath to your ancestors. Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years to humble and test you in order to know what was in your hearts." And then Moses is going to remind them of the lessons that they've learned. And he's going to call them to remember not only the law and the commands and their covenant promise to live according to those things and remind them that they are to do so and to do so faithfully, but he's also going to call them to remember the lessons that this generation has grown up learning in the desert of who God is and what he's done. And he's going to remind them not to forget the lessons that they've learned as they go into the promised land. And he's going to tell them to remember that it is God's victory, that God is the one who goes before them. In chapter 9, verse 4, he says, "After the Lord your God has driven them out before you, do not say to yourself, 'The Lord brought me here to take possession of this land because of my righteousness.' He says, no, it is on account of the wickedness of these nations that the Lord is driving them out before you. It is not because of your righteousness or your integrity," he says, "going in to take possession of their land, but on account of the wickedness of these nations, the Lord your God will drive them out before you to accomplish what he swore to your forefathers, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Understand then that this is not because of your righteousness that the Lord your God is giving you this good land to possess, for you are a stiff-necked people." And then he goes on, he says, remember the golden calf, remember the stone tablets, remember the hard lessons that we learned in the wilderness as God taught us how to be his people and how to trust him. Remember that we had to learn those things in the wilderness so that when we go into the land, we remember who he is from a place of humility, from a place of knowledge and understanding of his power, that the Lord goes before them. In chapter 10, he talks about their fear of the Lord being a guardrail. And he says, "Circumcise your hearts, therefore, do not be a stiff-necked people any longer. Remember, so that you can take the lessons that you've learned in the wilderness and that you can go forward and live your lives in ways that please God in this land that he's giving you, in this land of your inheritance." He says, "Fear the Lord your God and serve him. Hold fast to him and take your oaths in his name. Your ancestors," he even tells them, "Remember that you were once foreigners in Egypt." Don't forget your story. Don't forget not only the law and the covenant that you've made, and be faithful to follow it and obey it as your parents did not, but also remember your story. Remember what God did for us in Egypt. Remember what he's taught us in the desert, because these are the things that the Lord is wanting them. These are the ways that the Lord is wanting them to live in this new land. And the thing that really I found the most powerful as I read through this today, the thing that really actually stood out to me was in chapter 9, when he's telling them to remember that it's the Lord who did this and not to be overconfident that maybe somehow they made it happen after they've gone into the promised land and taken the land. Moses says, "The Lord your God will drive them out before you to accomplish what he swore to your forefathers. Understand then that it is not because of your righteousness that the Lord your God is giving you this good land." It is not because of their righteousness God is doing this. They haven't earned it. They have spent a lot of years in the wilderness learning how to follow, not learning how to be perfect, but learning how to follow God. And he's calling them to remember that, because when he takes them in, this isn't about their righteousness and them earning it and them accomplishing it. And it reminds me of how the New Testament teaches us that God demonstrated his love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Jesus came to fulfill God's promise to us, not because we were righteous, not because we were good, not because we were perfect, but because he promised that he would reconcile us to him. And that's exactly what he's done through Jesus. And here he's teaching the Israelites early on that lesson, that there are things that they're not going to be able to earn on their own, but that God will do because he is a faithful and loving God. He will deliver them. He will make a way, just as he has for us today. He did it then. He did it in the person of Jesus. And it just, because he's faithful, it reminds me that he is coming back, and we can trust that promise, and we have hope to look forward to that day. And in the meantime, we remember as the Israelites were called to remember our story. And we remember the lessons we learned in the hard places about who God is and his character and who we are in him. And we move forward in that knowledge and that understanding, deepening our relationship with him, circumcising our hearts, separating them from the ways of this world and committing them to God. So be encouraged today as you read through this. I hope that helps navigate a little bit through these chapters. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments in the Bible app. Have a great day, guys.